Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Where Does It Come From podcast after the summer break. My first podcast episode really this season is very exciting to me because it's something I've got into myself, although I'm a complete novice. We're going to be talking about natural dyes, and I have with me Amber, Fry and Hamza Zaidi, who are they're real experts in this area, both in different sort of ways as well, which is fantastic. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you here. So first of all, then, the first question really is to tell everyone a little bit about yourself and what you do. So do you want to start, Hamza?
Oh, no, ladies first, please.
Amber.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm Amber, a natural dyer who works with colour, its properties and its application. I strive for a more planet and people-focused textile world through my curation of an allotment of plant fibre, natural dyes and food. My allotment is based in Kent, England, where I design from each spring through the seeds I sow. Each spring translates into new colours and new design with application to consultancy for natural dyes and industry research for creating a new sustainable future of colour.
That's really interesting. So when you say you curate, so does that mean that you change the seeds that you're planting based on different parameters?
Yeah, so every year, even if you're planting the same seeds, you will get slightly different hues every time you extract a dye from your plant, whether that's weather conditions or soil conditions that year. For example, I might be growing Japanese indigo. One year might be slightly warmer, I might get more pigment, the next year slightly cooler. But yes, I have lots of perennials, annuals, mixes of food and fibre. So it's almost constantly changing and evolving.
Wow, that's really interesting. We'll come on to that a bit more later on. Hamza, tell us a little bit about what you do.
Sure. Thank you. Well, as you has already introduced, my name is Hamza. I come from AMA Herbal Laboratories. I am the Vice President of Sustainable Business Opportunities at the company. And my company is a India-based manufacturer, exporter of natural dyes for textiles. We're also into Ayurvedic medicines and cosmetics and whatnot. But the bread and butter, the crown jewel of our operation is natural dyes. We manufacture it here in India. And as of right now, we have been exporting it to almost 40 countries. And our facility is almost 30 years old now. And our mission has been, or at least that something that we strive for, is take natural dyes back to, or at least strive to take natural dyes back to the pre-industrial revolution levels, where it was used widely by the industry, not just the people who make their own at a cottage industry level. But our interest and mission has always been to take it to industrial application, and at least make the world realize that yes, natural dyes are there and they can come back surely and be benefit from them.
That's so interesting. The reason I wanted to get you both on here together was because I think you're quite a nice juxtaposition, because Amber is there, hands in the soil, planting things, creating dyes, researching, curating different plants. And you're almost the next level. You're saying, right, we've got these natural dyes. How do we get them used in brands? How do we get people to actually take this on and work with natural dyes? So that's why I wanted to get you both on together, which I think is quite interesting, because I think people think one or the other. They don't always think that of the relationship, I suppose, in that supply chain of getting natural dyes actually used. I also want to say that Hamza came all the way from India to speak at our event last year, Threads of Change in London. So thank you for that, Hamza.
Pleasure.
He did a workshop, which was absolutely fascinating. And we were able to try out AMA Herbal's natural dyes on the fly, which was fantastic. Anyway, welcome again to you both. The basic question I want to ask you both now, which is mainly because I think people listening, there may be a little bit of confusion or just lack of education, I guess, is what is a natural dye? So Amber, do you want to go first and tell us how you would define a natural dye?
Yes, of course. So I would define a natural dye as something you can extract colour from that comes from a plant root, leaves, flower, and possibly insects. Natural dyes provide colour through various extraction methods, whether that's boiling or whether that's through vats. This is not to be confused with plants that create stains. I believe the definition of a natural dye is something that has the potential for longevity of colour.
That's interesting. And why do you think it's important that we, so it's same to Amber, why do you think it's important that we look into natural dyes?
Yeah, I think that natural dyes, they have so much history to them. They're sort of a bridge between ancient recipes and modern practices of dyeing. Coloration within our world at the moment is mainly synthetic, but as I said, there's so much history to do with natural dyes, and it seems we've almost lost our way a bit. Implementing them back into structures, into industry, could be so important for creating regenerative futures in terms of soil health, community health. So all round, it has so much potential.
Yeah, absolutely. And to you, Hamza, how do you define a natural dye, and why do you think it's really important that we do this?
Sure. Before I start, I would just like to say that yes, if not for people like Amber who have been studying and researching, big companies and like companies like us, like me, wouldn't be here at this time. So yes, thank you to all the people like Amber who are actually working and researching and doing it at their own level. So and for me, I think as Amber rightly said, uh, we define natural dyes as something which firstly involves making dyes from all the naturally occurring ingredients, Mother Nature's bounty, leaves, barks, and berries and insects. And also, not just the sourcing of the natural resources, but also the process of extraction should be executed in a way which is 100% eco-friendly. And right now, we are also including how much of a closed loop value chain natural dyes can have. That also should be there in this definition. And in general, I think natural dyes are those which do not disturb the rhythm of the earth, of human life, be it on a sociological level or economical level or environmental level. So I believe that is the main importance of natural dyes, and why it has become more so at this time is that the chemical dyes and the chemicals that are typically used in textile wet processing, textile manufacturing, they have disturbed this said rhythm, as we already have seen. So natural dyes is something which will not do that. It's not in their nature to disturb this rhythm. I would define it that way.
That's really interesting. Thank you. I love that idea of the rhythm. And also interesting that you talk about closed loop systems, because of course, with many, but not all, dyeing systems, a lot of water is wasted, and a lot of chemicals can be put out into the environment. So having a closed loop system where the same water is used again and again and again is obviously much better for the environment as well, isn't it?
Correct. Because when we talk about closed loop, so I can give the example of a dye which is very much well known, indigo. So we talk about from the sourcing stage when indigo is grown, because as per my research and the company values, that indigo is the only dye, only plant which is just cultivated for the purpose of making a dye out of it. It has no other uses as such, as we have seen. So we talk about the cultivation, it has to be closed loop. Whatever residue at the cultivation stage should be put back into the soil. We talk about the manufacturing, whatever residue is there should be converted into a biofertilizer used to grow indigo again. And then we talk about the circular jeans, as people in the market talk about that. Yes, jeans and denim should be made in such a way that they're 100% recyclable. The dyes can be extracted and the cotton should be recycled. So yeah.
Yes, that links in very well to our Sanja Stories project, which you're helping us with as well, so that we can use different natural dyes, and the whole gene, including the dyes, will biodegrade harmlessly. So that's something that I know all three of us are very passionate about. Thank you. So Amber, Amber, it's conjoined already. Please, could you talk to us about some of the plants that you use for dyeing? So how do you grow them and make them into dyes, and what are the results like? And I know you have some samples there that you can show people. Just for information, this is an audio broadcast, but you can also see a video on our Where Does It Come From YouTube channel, and please follow us. So you can see some of these samples on the YouTube channel if you'd like to see them. But Amber, just talk to us a little bit about the plants you use and how you do it.
Yeah, of course. So the main three European dyes are weld, woad, and madder. I grow all three of these. They give you, woad gives you blue, which is sort of the European version of an indigo. You've got weld, which will give you vibrant yellows, and madder, which mostly everyone's heard about within the natural dye space, giving you bright reds, oranges, peaches, as well as a whole host of other colours I create from different plants. These include plants like marigolds, dyer's chamomile, cosmos, even got things like rhubarb root, things like St. John's wort, which has a medicinal element, but you can extract colour from them. So at the moment, I'm holding up a few swatches. So those of you streaming in
Lovely.
visually will be able to see these. These are created from this year's colour palette of indigo alone. So indigo we associate being vibrant blues, but if you understand the chemistry and compounds that live in these indigo leaves, you can extract so many more colours. So you've got your typical blues, which are your vat dyes. And then if you're looking into other extraction methods, you can get vibrant teals, you can get lime-toned yellows, and even dusky pinks. So there's so much you can do from one plant. It doesn't have to be concentrated to the original or most popular knowledge.
Wow, that is absolutely fascinating.
Beautiful.
Yeah, they're so beautiful, the colours. And anyone who's listening, I urge you to go and take a look. Or I'm sure if you contact Amber, she can show you some of those beautiful colours. Absolutely amazing, Amber. Yeah, there's a lot of things like plants I hadn't even heard of there. Cosmos, what kind of a plant is that?
Yeah, cosmos is more of a ornamental plant you might see in cottage gardens. It's tall, it's got blooms. Normally natural dyers will use sulfur cosmos, which is the orange variety. You can get many in pinks, in peaches. Great for bundle dyeing, hammer printing, so where you're pressing flowers onto fabrics. Bundle dyeing, you can get really, really vibrant, more
Wow.
abstract prints.
It's beautiful.
Fantastic method, really accessible to people. These have been on some fantastic pea silk. So again, if we're talking about natural fibres and natural dyes, it's important to use as sustainable sources where you can. So pea silk being non-violent silk.
Absolutely. And do you find that you get different colour results on the different fabrics that you use?
100%, yes.
That's the best part.
Yeah, exactly. Because yeah, the silk is
Again, I'm holding up a few swatches. These are dyer's chamomile. The one in the middle is a vibrant yellow. This is on silk, which is a protein. You've got your cellulose, which might be linen, cottons, hemps. They pick up natural dyes very differently. You've got a different method of fixing the natural dyes to the fibres as well.
wow.
But yes, every fibre picks up dyes differently, which is fantastic if you've got a certain project and you're looking for a certain colour. Having the knowledge to pair that colour with fibre will give you the results you're looking for.
Amazing. And you mentioned, it's so interesting. So amazing. You talked about the medicinal actually, and I know that Hamza did earlier with the Ayurvedic. So was it St. John's wort you said that has a medicinal quality?
So there's quite a lot of plants that have medicinal qualities. If we're also talking about woad, for example, very well known for its leaves being used for blue dye in Europe. However, in Chinese medicine, the roots are used very commonly. So it's about understanding these plants. For example, St. John's wort is not often used as a natural dye, but you can get yellows and possibly slightly tinted reds from it.
Wow.
It's a medicinal dye in terms of helping with your mood, alleviating stress, anxiety. So yeah, fantastic all-round benefits.
Yeah, I had an idea years ago. It didn't come to anything like many of my ideas to do Ayurvedic pajamas for children, because I was thinking, wouldn't it be lovely to have put your children in pajamas at night that you knew were giving them positive properties as they were sleeping, you know. So if anyone else wants to steal that idea, you're more than welcome, because I probably won't get around to doing it. Okay, over to Hamza now. Can you talk to us about AMA Herbal and the product? So how do you make these natural dyes that Amber has talked about, which, you know, sound quite complicated to the layperson, easier to use and more commercial? And how do you test these to make sure that they fit into the sort of commercial environment?
Sure. Well, once again, kudos to Amber. I mean, there's such lovely, tremendous work. I have so many questions. I don't want to take over this podcast right now from Joe, but certainly we'll have time. But yes, so as Amber rightly said, the natural dyes are available abundantly in the environment. Any plant you pick up, anything natural you pick up, will have a color-giving compound and essential oil. That's by nature. But yes, for our company's perspective, since we have been since we have been striving for making it commercial, in big machines, so we have a specific dyes portfolio. We do not have all the dyes in the world, all the plants. We have a specific one. Some of them are very popular, very common, like madder, Amber said. There is also indigo as well in there. But yes, one thing which we have tried to do differently, because we do get questions about that a lot, is you talk about the world using natural dyes. What will happen to all the farmers? Will everyone cultivate natural madder or something like that? So what we have done is we have divided our portfolio into two parts, one of which deals with all the dyes which are typically waste of another industry. So I'll give you an example by the pomegranate fruit juice industry. Very well, very well big industry. And so they use a lot of pomegranate seeds. What we get is the rind from them, the outer covering, the shells, and we use those shells to manufacture a dye. Similarly, we do with another dye which is called Kutch. So Kutch is another very well-known item which is used in the mouth flavoring industry in India. So that the waste of that industry is called black Kutch. We use that to make another dye. Then there is Nimbus. I'm sorry, the name of the dye, the Nimbus, but it gives a purple color. It's from lac. So now, many people know that the lac insect, its outer covering and its fecal matter is used a lot in making a compound which is very shiny. So it's used in tablet polishing, in polishes and coatings and all. Whatever residues from that industry, we use that to make a dye. So this is something which we have done. So we don't have any problems in sourcing, because if we want to supply big quantities to big industries, so we don't have that problem that, oh no, we have to grow it, we have to do something like that. No, that's nothing like that. There are certain dyes which are abundantly available in the market, available in the nature. For example, there's a dye which is from gallnut. Gallnut is a fruit which is abundantly available in the foothills of the Himalayan regions. It just naturally falls down from the trees and nothing happens to that. So we employ a lot of people to collect that and all. So that is something. And then when we talk about how to make it commercially easy for people to use, for people to actually experiment with, so that's where the process of dyeing comes in. We have the dyes, we have the whole process, we have the auxiliaries as well that are all organic, and we have made it very well, very well our mission that we will not be using 100% chemicals in any of the auxiliaries. Some of them are from chemical origin, but all are certified organic. So we have those additives to aid us. And then also we have developed this cold dyeing process. So all the exhaust dyeing process that we do, it happens on a room temperature. We do not require any temperature at that time. So we save up on that. And then of course we talk about the effluents, how the treatment will happen, this and that. So in that sense, since all our dyes, we have them certified on organic standards, on zero discharge of hazardous chemical standards. So we are able to alleviate those concerns by certifications. So this is, in a nutshell, I would say that this is how we have been able to convince the big companies, the big manufacturers who have big machines, who have big orders, to use our natural dyes, because we are able to make a whole package of it, and we give them the language that they understand, so to
Yeah.
speak.
No, I mean, it's very impressive. I mean, what you're talking about is take, like, you're sort of being an interface between nature and
Yeah.
mainstream fashion, I suppose, in a way. And just to say, Hamza very kindly let me have some samples of one of their the natural dyes that they use, because I wanted to try it out for our Sanja Stories project. And it was basically, just for the listeners and the watchers to know, it was basically several little paper packets, and the dye was already ready. So all I had to do was pour some water from the hot. I just used warm water, hand warmth, and put that in there, and then the fixer, and I swirled the fabrics around in that, and then it was all very, very simple. And just to show anyone watching, so this was using rubia, which is a madder dye, on organic regenerative denim. And this is the color that it came out. And this was not with anything special at all. This was me in my kitchen, and then hung it out in the garden kind of thing. So, and put it through the washing machine to make sure it was fixed. And this is how it came out. So I'm personally very impressed with that. And it'd be interesting to try some more colors. But so I think for all those people who love what Amber does, and hands in the soil and picking the flowers and creating it, that's one thing. But if you're just someone who wants to pour it out of a packet and do it in your kitchen, then there are options that work for using natural dyes there as well. So we have both ends of the spectrum on here. And question to you both, because one thing that everyone asks me whenever we talk about natural dyes is how long do they fade? I suppose that's the question. Do they fade? Who wants to take that one?
Yeah, I can. So when we're talking about natural dyes, I believe there's a bit of a misconception, especially within industry, that could be stopping greater uptake of natural dyes. With the right fixatives, which I'm sure Hamza can talk about more, about his auxiliaries, you can get really good staying power in terms of light fastness and wash fastness with your pigments. At the moment, natural dyes and synthetics are being compared side by side. However, they are completely different chemically wise. So there is going to be a difference in their ultimate fastness. But again, I pose a question, can we see this as an opportunity to change our mindset? If a certain dye does fade over time, is it an opportunity we can re-dye it, maybe a different color? That gives you more connection to maybe it's a garment. It gives it another story, another life. So potentially some dyes do fade, some dyes don't. It's about choosing the right plants for your projects ultimately.
Hamza,
Yes,
say
absolutely. I second whatever Amber said. Is that it's some of the dyes, it's their beauty basically, because if even if they don't fade, some of them do fade because it's nature, and as do chemical dyes, they also fade. It's not like they're there for them forever. But in natural dyes, there's something which is very beautiful, is that they experience certain tonal changes, which sort of enhances the color over time, and that not just extends the life of that particular garment, but makes it more aesthetically pleasing. This is something which I have seen by wearing many of the garments that I try to dye at home and at the office. I try to nix some of them also. Don't look at CEO that. But anyway, so I also like wear them try to wear them on a regular basis. So this is something which I have experienced, and in terms of the fading and how the tonal changes happen, it all comes down to what the customer wants, what the person wearing it wants. Some people prefer, like for example, if I give the example of denim now, denim is something which, as my CEO very much said, that denim is something in which the problems are sold as beauty. Because as much as the denim fades, as much as it gets the wash down effects, the more valuable, the more pleasing, and the more beautiful it becomes. So if we can have that for denim, why can't we have that for other types of garments? And yes, as with any kind of garments, there always will be wash care instructions.
yes, of
Maybe with
course. Of course,
yes,
yeah, exactly. And it's interesting what you say about denim and the beauty of the product, because that has got to such a point maybe 10 years ago that people were actually trying to fake it, weren't they? So people were trying to bleach their jeans and
yeah, exactly.
sand their jeans to try and get that worn, loved look that you can only get from wearing and loving, really.
Correctly. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is something which I have seen, like when we try to communicate it with the brands, we try to give them all the details, and we tell them that you design the wash care instructions accordingly. Because even with chemical dyes, there are certain wash care instructions that you have to adhere to. Maybe some kinds of detergents you should not use. Some are, some should not be tumble dried, and so on and so forth. And people are ready to do that. So if they are ready to do that for that, for anything which is dyed synthetically, I'm sure they will love to do that for anything which is dyed naturally.
Yeah, well, I think it's, as Amber says, it's about that love thing, isn't it? It's about that connection and that love. So if you buy something or make something or dye something, and you build that personal connection with it, then you will take care of it in terms of you will wash them at the right temperatures and whatever, and maybe even re-dye it if the color fades. But that's kind of a bit more personal. It's when you go to the shop and you just buy something off the shelf that's made of polyester and it's got a really vibrant color, synthetic color in it, you're not going to have that same connection with it at all. You know, any sort of connection you build with that is going to be from the experience that you have with it. So much better to build a connection with the actual garment as well, I would have said. But then
Exactly.
we're probably all preaching to the converted here.
Yeah.
So
There is one. I'm sorry. Yeah, please go ahead.
you go ahead. You go ahead.
Yeah, I was just talking about a case which came across recently. Then there's a lot of talk about, we have workshops for vehicles, we have workshops for phones. Why not have workshops for clothes, right? If something happens to your clothes, we talk about, lessening the consumption. So you take it to a workshop and then they help it, get back to its normal stage. So I posed that question actually to a brand with whom I was having a meeting, that even if the dye fades, why not you have this sort of supply chain set where if a natural dyed garment does fade over time, you can take it to a workshop, use the same dye and the same processes, re-dye it, give it a new look.
Yeah.
Why not do that?
Yeah, no, it's a really good
Something which
point.
came across.
It's an interesting point, isn't it? That color, the garment's color and the fabric in people's minds are the same thing. They don't realize that they're two
So,
separate things, that you're adding the color to the fabric. And in some cases, the color may go and you've still got the fabric, so you can recolor the fabric. They're not the same thing. And I
right.
love the idea of, I mean, we always used to, not so much with dyeing, but we always used to take, I don't mean we, but in sort of a century or two ago, people would always take their clothes to be mended or altered, or, up until fast fashion, really. So
Mhm.
the idea of taking your clothes to an expert to be altered and mended, why can't that come back and be extended to dyeing? I don't see why not.
Exactly.
It's just
If
about education, isn't it?
Sure. If my mother didn't do that when I was going to school, I think we'll have like 10,000 different types of uniforms at my home, because
Exactly right. Yeah.
so much wear and tear at the school.
Yeah. Absolutely. And talking
Yeah,
of
and also
workshops,
it's
so carry on, Amber.
also it's about investing in emotional durability. So again, we're talking about if somebody you know that's close to you has patched your jacket, put stitches in it, that's got more emotional durability to you. It's got more of a story. The same if you're taking it to a workshop that's putting on new buttons, mending holes, maybe new zips. Again, that's giving your item a new story. So yeah, definitely important if we want to extend the life of our clothes.
No, it's really interesting. I was talking of workshops as well, as part of our Sandra Stories project, regenerative jeans project I already mentioned. We're going to have the jeans made without dyes. They're going to come naked, as Rachel calls them. So they haven't been dyed at all. They'll come in their natural sort of ecru cream color. And then we're going to run workshops so that people who want to can come along and dye them themselves with experts there to help them do that, so they can choose the color that they want and dye them themselves, because we think that that will personalize them and give them that love of their jeans themselves, rather than just buying them off the shelf.
That's right.
Yeah, that's what we're hoping to do. So one question, because I know that we're all very pro natural dyes on this podcast, but are there any downsides? We've talked about the upsides. What would you say were the downsides of using natural dyes?
Yeah, so if we're talking about possibly the setbacks if we're trying to implement natural dyes into industry, a big one is ensuring all of our inputs are safe at scale. What I can use on a localized small scale level at my allotment, perhaps that's rainwater I collect, use for dyeing, and then I can put that rainwater back onto my plants. Inputs I can use can also be put back on certain plants that love those different aspects. However, at industry scale, it's a lot bigger. Whatever impacts I'm having on soil, on microstructure of soil organisms, whether it's animals, bacteria, will be a lot greater at scale. So again, we can mitigate this by working with chemists and people who can design auxiliaries and certain chemicals which are safe to use at scale. We need to be looking into circularity. So circularity of inputs, water systems, chemicals as a whole. Can we use, for example, if we're growing our indigo, can we use natural pesticides? Can we make that from rhubarb leaves, for example? So all of these things just need to be reconsidered. Not using what's currently being used out of ease and convenience, but can we create new systems where everything we're inputting is safe? Ultimately, if we're creating a garment, that dye is going to be sitting on top of your skin, also absorbed into your bloodstream. It's not something we really want to be having directly in contact with us. So making sure everything is as safe as possible is something that's needed for the future of natural dyes.
Interesting, thank you. And that does make one reflect on what we're putting against our skin now that isn't natural dyes, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Hamza, same question to you. Do you see any downsides of using natural dyes?
Yes, I think building upon what Amber rightly said, I think I could just talk about three that I, more or less very much commonly come across. So one will, of course, be that when we talk about natural dyes, since the whole manufacturing, the whole supply chain, the whole value chain is different. So I would say that there will be an upside to the cost when we talk about naturally dyed garments, because Amber is the better person to answer this, that a lot of effort, a lot of emotional effort and time effort and everything goes into manufacturing the natural dyes and then designing it, then applying it on the fabric and then, doing everything to that. So one thing which is there, which I have come across is that, yes, people are not ready to understand that the value chain is different. So there will be a premium. So if you are able, if you are able to pay more for organic cotton, for recycled cotton, for anything like that, why not keep natural dyes in the same basket? So one will be that. Secondly, Amber made a point about this, that the constant comparison with synthetic dyes. I think this is the one of the biggest setbacks, because it's completely different. Like, it's like comparing, I always say it's like comparing apples to oranges. The chemistry is different. So you cannot compare them willy-nilly one to one, because it will not, it, of course, it's a, a lost case for natural dyes. They cannot go head to head with synthetic dyes if you talk about the fastness or whatever. So I would say that, yes, that is one of the setbacks that I've come across. And thirdly, which is for me as a company, is convincing people that whatever I sell, like whatever my company makes and whatever gets applied to the fabric, is natural. So a lot of people talk about compliances. A lot of people talk about certifications. There have been cases where people want to have the standards. How do we test? How do we confirm that what you say, that this piece of, if I talk about this piece of garment, if it's natural dyed, how do we test this, that this is naturally dyed? So for that, one of the things that actually came from my company CEO, Mr. Yaur Ali Shah. So he's actually one of the conveners in the board at the ISO, which is responsible for drafting and finalizing and publishing natural dye identification standards. So happy to report that 3 of those standards are already published. More are on their way, not just for ISO, but for the Bureau of Indian Standards as well. So I think when this becomes, widely known, it would help a lot in because people are ready to compromise on the price. They might be ready to compromise on the performance as well, but they will not compromise on the claims. So they have to be convinced. Their technical people have to be convinced that, yes, whatever you supply, whatever we put on the fabric, that we put our name on, because we are the dyestuff manufacturers, we don't make the textiles, right? So whoever is putting their name on a piece of natural dyed garment, they have to be convinced. And I think the road to convincing them goes through standards, standardization, identification. I think these three will be there at a commercial stage, of course.
That's really interesting, actually. And I hadn't actually even considered the whole standards side of it
Yeah.
at all. So it's really, and congratulations to your CEO for being so involved in all of that, because that's
Thank you.
extremely interesting. I think it's definitely that you say apples and oranges, and there's the whole cliches around level playing fields and things like
Yeah.
that. I mean, I've just
Yeah.
recently been working on a project with wool, the traceability of sheep wool. And that doesn't sound like it's relevant, but it is, because there's been a lot of lobbying from synthetic wool-like fibers to try to say that their synthetics are more better for the environment than natural wool, because of the way that the parameters are set to compare those standards. Because obviously we all know that it's really, really, I wouldn't say it's complete nonsense, because I'm not in it, don't know enough about it to say, but it sounds to me like complete nonsense. I'll say that on record, that it could possibly be the case that a fossil fuel generated fabric could be better for the environment than a naturally grown fabric. Of course, there's differences. So it's the same with dyes. I'm thinking as well that if you're trying to compare with a synthetic dye, taking the same parameters you would check from that, but not looking at other parameters, it's not a level playing field at all. So it's really good to know that there's work going on to create standards and share that with the commercial world. So congratulations on that. Very, very interesting. So my next question is, I'll start with Amber. What do you think is next for natural dyes? Do you think, can you see mainstream brands using them? And what do we need to do to encourage brands to take up natural dyes in their garments more?
Yeah, so currently I've seen natural dyes more being implemented in small scale artisanal craft, but also in the intimate apparel sector. So as we're talking about things being close to our skin, being natural, that's a selling point of things being natural, good for your skin, good for your body. I believe that we need localized infrastructure and knowledge. There needs to be more connection between everybody in the supply chain in order for the next steps of natural dye for it to grow within the industry. Whether that's using the history of natural dyes and the people within communities who have that knowledge, they need to be implemented into supply chains alongside brands. They need to be valued and recognized. Their knowledge may come with knowledge about stewardship of land. They may understand how to take care of the roots of society within their village. This all impacts supply chains. Ultimately, it impacts the end product. You're going to have a better end product if your supply chain is happy, satisfied, or well-rounded. So yes, in all, there needs to be a lot more connection throughout everybody in the supply chain to be able to create a better future of sustainable colour.
Thank you. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Same message for you, Hamza. What's next for natural dyes, and how can we get more brands using them?
One thing which I have come across is that in my meetings with the brands, both in India and outside of India, is that if they see other brands using it, they will initially like they will be like, yes, if they are using it, then there is something there to be commercialized, and I will use it as well. So that's what I try to do at every turn, is that there have been some brands along the way that have actually used our dyes and launched collections in the UK, in USA. And we also we work very closely. We as a company try to work very closely with the brands, because it's part of our marketing mix. I would say that we have to work very well with the brands to convince them on the concepts, work well with the manufacturers to convince them on the processes, work very closely with the designers to work on the possibilities of the design. So it's part of our holistic approach. So this is something which I've learned, that brands require that whatever you say, you do, you deliver. So if you are able to back up your claims with the certifications, with the compliances, with the standards that they understand, and if you communicate to them in a language that they understand, that their customers understand. Basically, if you're talking to a brand, you're not talking to them, you're actually talking to the consumers through them. So they have to be able to answer their consumers' question. And if you are able to spoon feed them with these answers, I think it will be easier for them to convince. And another thing is that what we have been trying to do for the past 2, 3 years is that collaborate closely with the designers, conduct fashion shows. We just had a very beautiful one in Delhi, which was all about natural prints. It was one of the best collections that I've ever seen. I would love you all and your listeners, of course, to have a look at them. They're on the LinkedIn, on my company's LinkedIn right now, and on the web as well. And because that is where, people's thinking horses start running, that start galloping. They see, oh, this is the possibility. I have seen that there are a lot of I don't want to use bad word mouth, but I would say a lot of misconceptions with natural dyes on a commercial scale. They think, oh, it's just, cottage industry and, people making dyes in their homes and all. But it's that's the beautiful that if they're able to do that at their home and we are there to bridge the gap, then it's possible. So I have seen the twinkle in the designer's eyes that when they see, oh, if Relievise is using it or Scotch and Soda is using it or something like that, that is something which I think that will get more brands to use it. And yes, as Amber rightly said, the whole value chain, supply chain should be kept happy, should be as per the standards required by the brands. So, and that is a constant research, constant hammering. If we are in this industry, then we are there for a cause, and we have to go at it each and every day. As my CEO has been at it for almost 30 years now, without getting disoriented. I have gotten disoriented so many times, but I do keep myself back on the track, seeing him as my inspiration. And of course, talking to people like Amber and Joe, who are so passionate about uh, this subject. So yeah, I think this is how we'll be able to, bridge the gap and get more brands to using it, because they want to use it. Natural dyes is a buzzword still. Whenever someone says natural dyes, I'm like, oh wow, nice. But if you're not able to communicate it to them in the language that they understand, it it's a lost cause, I would say, for both industry and artisans.
Yeah, I think your communication, you've nailed it on the head there, Hamza. I think the communication is really important, because if a brand is using natural dyes and they don't tell their customers what that actually means to them, they're going to find that the customers' expectations will be something different. But if you're actually communicating and the positives around natural dyes and how they're going to develop and all the way through the life cycle of the garment, that's a positive, that's not a negative. That's how they shouldn't be apologizing for this. It's a benefit, I suppose. So I think that's really important, but the brands have to communicate it with their customers the best way, really, and that's something you guys can help with, and comms people can help with, to make sure the message gets across, for sure. The other thing I was going to say was
one point. Can I just make one? I missed that. Yeah, I hope it's fine. Yeah, one of the things which also will help in making more brands aware and adopt this is that the industry academia partnerships, we make it as a company a very big mission of ours. I also personally am trying to do that. It's trying to partner up with as many institutions as possible, fashion institutions as possible, because if you're able to educate them, like the one I did on Threads of Change at Khadi London, which you very nicely were able to moderate, and you were there, you all saw. I do it with my company does it with institutions in India as well. We try to do it. I would love to have one with UAL or Central St. Martin or something. But anyway, so because
they might be listening.
Yes, please. I am here. So if you're able to communicate and convince the people who are studying fashion, because these will be the people who will join the brands later on, and if they have that mindset, ready, so I think it will be a big leap in natural light option. Sorry.
No, that's a really good point. Of education in the academic sense is also really important. So there's the customer education, and there's educating the future fashion designers who will be making those kind of decisions. Absolutely right. Yeah, I was just going to make the point about scale as well, because the things we're talking about here, and Hamza, you've mentioned organic and all of that kind of thing. We need to descale the fashion industry anyway, but we need to be creating, I can't remember the numbers now, but we need to be reducing by tenfold the amount of garments that are created in the world, and we need to be creating the ones we do create better. So natural dyes, I believe personally, has a real role to play in that. journey for sure in the next decades.
Yeah, definitely. It's about creating appropriate size businesses. Do we need to scale them to a point where they're so massive and so industrialized that we're just pumping out clothes for the sake of it? Can we keep things small enough to create a fantastic profit, which can also be recircularized back into the business, but to also help everybody, again, through the supply chain, community, brands, customers. So yeah, place-based as well, everything being localized could be really important as we're trying to scale natural dyes, working in certain areas, regions. Do they have specific qualities that we can harness? Take their knowledge, the natural dyes, work with that at a scale which produces really unique, possibly garments, cloths. But yeah, it's about scale being appropriate, localized to the place.
That's an interesting idea, that kind of regionalized production idea, which again goes back into history, doesn't it? So if you're growing something like hemp and then you're using some other local plant to dye that, then you get a regionalized quality in fabric again, in the same way as you do in India with the embroidery and the different things that come from different regions, and those regions become known for certain cloths and colors. I mean, that would be absolutely amazing, like Aran wool or something like that. So it's a lovely thought. I hope we can go there, because I think that makes things less standard again, isn't it? Less everything's the same again. We have our own regional qualities. You go somewhere on a trip and you bring back a garment that you bought from that particular region. Be very, very exciting. Okay.
Going forwards for business models, it creates unique selling points. So having things not quite as standardized, it's just a different perspective of doing business. Natural dyes could be a way of change into this new world.
Yeah, it's a very nice, it's a lovely thought, actually, definitely, that we could do something like that. Just coming to the end now, really, is I want to ask you both, Amber first, what message do you have for listeners who might want to get involved with natural dyes but not quite know how to?
Yeah, so I guess my message would be, we live in such a disconnected world at the moment, from our fibres, from the colours that are on our clothes. So I believe the most radical thing we can do is to connect through learning and knowledge back to the earth. By that I mean, can you understand how a seed grows into a plant and how those leaves can be extracted into pigment or colour? This goes totally against the grain of popularized synthetic dyes. So I encourage listeners to get involved and be curious. It is only through collective intelligence and knowledge that we will understand how to push colour and fibre to a more sustainable place. But on a practical note, those wanting to get involved in natural dyes, I encourage you to seek what's available to you first. That could be through waste products, like Hamza's been speaking about earlier. On a small scale, have you got onion skins in your kitchen, avocado pits? If you're lucky enough to have a community around you, why don't you gather your onion skins together, create a dye bath, a community dye bath? What about foraging responsibly? Going out looking for nettles, oak galls, read up on books about it. So yes, get practical, hands-on, try and understand as much as you can.
Wonderful. And there must be lots of workshops, I guess, around as well.
Yes, have a look online, locally, what's available to you. Hopefully there will be people running workshops within your area. If not, can you do it yourself? Can you gather a group of people together, friends, family, give it a go? It might not be perfect first time, it's a learning journey, and there's lots to discover about natural dyes, but yeah, give it a go.
Wonderful. And Hamza, same to you. What message do you have for people who'd like to get involved with natural dyes?
First thing will be that start seeking out natural dyed garments when you go out shopping. Start looking at what the clothes are, what they are made from, where do the sources, where are the sources, where do they come from, where does it come from? Yes. So start looking at that, and then, as Amber rightly said, educate yourself. But first, through education, you'll be able to convince yourself first that yes, natural dyes is something which can be done, can be worn. It is not some taboo or something which not many where which something which is very localized, or a small collection of people only are into. It's not something like that. In every country there are some signature plants and trees and barks where natural dye is extracted from. Each and every country has that. It has been like that since the beginning of human society. So yeah, understand the history of natural dyes, where it came from, what happened to it in the past two centuries. I'm sorry, in the past 200 300 years, what happened to it? Why did it go down? And then, and get to know people who are trying to bring it back up, like the three people who are in this podcast. So try to get to know them. And firstly and foremost, I think understand what you wear. Start demanding natural dyes, because if you do that, then there is a way where in which the brand where you shop from will also get into it. And that is how the commercial application and the wider benefit of natural dyes, which we as a localized group of people are enjoying, are getting benefited from, that is how it will also scale up. More people will get benefited, more people will understand, and then they'll be able to proudly say yes, that yes, I am eco conscious, I am a responsible fashion person, I wear something which I know where it had come from, and how it's made, and I know everything about what I wear. If you know everything about your mobile phone, what's the megapixel of the camera, what's the RAM, what's the ROM, then you should know stuff about your clothes as well. It is not just the brand which is plastered on the face of it, or the color. It's the whole thing, the holistic thing that you have to wear.
Yeah, yeah. I always say to my children, if you can know everything about every player in every football team in the league and how many goals they scored, you can know your schoolwork. It's the same idea.
Exactly.
We choose what we choose what we do, what we know, what
Exactly.
we learn about.
Exactly. Exactly.
Wonderful. Right, last of all then, Amber, tell us how people can get in touch with you and find out more about what you do. Share your contacts.
Yeah, so on Instagram, I'm Amber Fry Creative. Please follow along. I've been this year documenting the journey from seed to plant to dye. I will be weaving up some fantastic pieces of fabric with my natural dyes. So yes, do follow along, get in touch if you would like to learn more.
Fantastic. And Hamza, tell us how to get in touch with you and AMA Herbal, and even source your products if they happen to be an organization who wants to do so.
Sure. So we are there. My company's full name is AMA Herbal Laboratories. So we are there on Instagram by the same name, AMA Herbal. We are there on LinkedIn. We are there on Facebook. We are there on Twitter, YouTube as well. And then we have our own website, amaherbal.com. So that is how you can get in touch with us. We also keep doing education outreach programs with weavers, with artisans in India. We just recently signed an MOU with an organization to train 1,000 weavers in an year about natural dyes. So that is a way to get in touch with us. And then, of course, I don't have my own Instagram, of course, but yes, anyone who wants to get in touch with me can find me on LinkedIn. My full name is Hamza Zaidi, as Joe rightly said. And that is how we can definitely start, because uh, of course we are a company, so main customer base is the big brands and the big manufacturers, but we do have small kits, small starter kits of small quantities for artisans, for hobby dyers. We do connect with a lot of hobby dyers in fashion institutes. In some of them run a haberdashery, or some of them are from different cities and different parts of the country, and some in other parts of the world as well. So we have we have the products for which you can use, and you can experiment, and you can try. So yes, do get in touch with us. We will support you all the way.
Wonderful, fantastic. And like I say, I've tried AMA Herbal's Rubia dye, and that was very successful. So I'm looking forward to trying some more and hopefully using them more on products as well. So it's very exciting. And I think it's nice to have something that's easy to use, especially as a hobby dyer, as you say, and then to know that that can then be picked up industrially as well, and that can move into the mainstream of fashion, which would be fantastic.
Sure. a lot of people that I connect with is that I connect with in the past. I've connected, and then we talk a lot with them. Is that not all of them have or want? Maybe it's just maybe it's a want, not a have, but they want to do their own dyeing. They're looking for, okay, you're a natural dye manufacturer, help us source the fabrics directly. So recently, I would also like to put it out there to all the people who are listening that recently we have collaborated with two vendors, and now we are able to supply natural yarn dyed fabrics and also natural printed fabrics as well.
Oh,
So it's
fantastic.
something which we are able to cater to the market as well. I'm trying to get more people on board so that even if they don't have their own dyeing facility or they don't want to do their own dyeing, they can collaborate and get the fabrics from us directly. So in
Wonderful.
that way, the designers and the brands, I think some of the concerns and will be alleviated, I believe.
Wonderful. That's fantastic. Well, thank you very much to you both. That was a fascinating conversation. I'm sure we could have carried on for much longer. I hope everybody listening and or watching has really enjoyed this, and don't hesitate to get in touch with me or Amber or Hamza if you would like to know any more. I'd urge you to just pop over and give us a follow or a like or all of those kind of things, because this is just, the more people can get to see this, the better, and it's all done to try and share knowledge, which is really important to me. So thank you again both for coming on the Where Does It Come From podcast.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Amber. It was really good to discuss with you, and it just fills my heart with warmth. Talk about natural dyes with people who are as passionate, if not more, as passionate as me. So thank you so much. Congratulate you both on your work, on the tremendous work that you are doing, and hope to connect with you in the future as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's been an inspirational conversation.
Thank you.